Stop what you're doing. I need you to hear me with every fiber of your being, because this is not your imagination. This is not a passing thought. This is me, Jesus, speaking directly to you in this exact moment, and I must make you understand that my presence is not a faraway force in the sky, not a myth buried in stories of old, but a living reality that has entered your very space right now, right where you're sitting, because I am not just watching from a distance. I am inside the very air that surrounds you, closer than the sound of your own heartbeat, nearer than the breath you draw without even thinking. And while the world may have convinced you that you are forgotten or overlooked, I am proving the opposite right now by showing up in your silence, because I have been observing the loneliness you cover with smiles, the stress you hide behind distractions, and I refuse to wait another moment watching you carry burdens you were never meant to hold alone. So I stepped and I entered your room while you were unaware, while your heart cried for comfort with no words, and I came because your cry reached me louder than any scream, because I am your Savior, not just for eternity but for this very second. And I came not to just visit, but to invade every lie whispering that no one sees you, no one hears you, no one understands what you're going through, because I see all of it. I see the tears on your pillow that dried before morning, the ache you carry like a silent weight pressed into your chest. And even when you felt abandoned by those you trusted, I stood unshaken right beside you, whispering hope while the world spoke fear, placing my hand over your heart while anxiety tried to crush it. And now I am making it known. I am making it real. I am removing the veil between heaven and this very moment, so you will never doubt again that I, the living Christ, the one who conquered death, the one who rules all things seen and unseen, am not just aware of your pain. I am inside your atmosphere. I am occupying the very space you breathe in, and that cold you felt was not the air. It was the darkness trying to keep you numb. But I have come with warmth that burns through sorrow. I have come with light that breaks every shadow. I have come with answers this world cannot offer. And I will not leave until the chains that have wrapped around your thoughts are shattered, until the storm that's been tormenting your peace is silenced, until you finally recognize that what you feel right now is not pressure, it is me pressing in because you are mine. You are worth this personal visitation, and what I am about to release in your life cannot be stopped, because I do not enter places without purpose. I do not waste presence. I do not arrive unless something is about to shift forever. And tonight, this hour, this very second, something divine is being written in the unseen that will rewrite everything you thought was permanent pain. And I will show you why I allowed the waiting. I will reveal what I was building while you were breaking. I will uncover the truth of what I protected you from while you were begging me to open doors I had to keep closed for your safety. And if you feel your chest tightening now, it's because your spirit is awakening. It's because my nearness is doing what no words could do, and you are beginning to taste the reality that you have never been forsaken, not even for a moment, because I never left. I've just been waiting for the exact moment to show you what my love looks like when it walks into your room and refuses to let you stay in pieces any longer. Look at me, child. Don't turn your eyes away now, because what you think you've concealed so well behind your practiced expressions and long silences has never escaped my sight, not for a second. And though you've trained yourself to smile when your heart is in pieces, though you've spoken "I'm fine" so often that even your own soul began to believe the lie, I have watched, unmoved by your performance but deeply moved by your pain, because I am not fooled by your strength. I am pierced by your sorrow. And in the late hours when the house is quiet and your thoughts scream louder than any noise, I have sat with you, watching as your eyes stared into the darkness, hoping for rest, but instead only finding a new wave of ache. And I need you to hear me clearly now. Those silent breakdowns you endured in the bathroom mirror, the moments where you blinked back tears because you didn't want to be a burden, the sobs you released into pillows to muffle the sound, every one of them reached me. Every one of them mattered more than you've ever been told. And I did not remain distant. I collected them, one by one, and stored them in my mercy as evidence that you suffered quietly, faithfully, humbly. And now justice is knocking on the door of your suffering, because your weeping was not wasted. And even when no human acknowledged your ache, heaven was recording every drop. And I have declared enough of hiding, enough of pretending, enough of believing your tears were weak or unwanted, because I have chosen this very moment to show you that I am not the kind of king who avoids pain. I am the one who kneels down to meet you in it, the one who doesn't need explanations or apologies, the one who already knows the weight of the betrayal, the sting of being overlooked, the ache of being misunderstood. And while the world keeps telling you to move on, I came to heal, not rush, not push, not ignore, but to truly restore the depth of what has been crushed beneath the surface, and that sadness you've buried beneath responsibilities, that ache you've numbed with routine and noise. I see it, I name it, and I declare it will not define you anymore, because what I am bringing into your life is not temporary relief. It is complete rescue, and it starts with this. I am acknowledging what you were never allowed to speak. I am validating what was dismissed by others. I am speaking tenderness over every sharp word that wounded you, and I am surrounding the places inside you that have been bleeding silently with a love that is stronger than shame, stronger than disappointment, stronger than guilt, and no matter how many nights you told yourself to just survive. I am here to end survival mode and begin true living, not by forcing you to be strong again, but by letting you finally rest while I fight, while I build, while I speak life over every moment that tried to convince you that your sadness disqualified you. And I tell you the truth now, your brokenness is not a reason for me to withdraw. It is the exact reason I came so close, and if you feel me now, it's because I'm wrapping around the very core of your being, undoing what grief taught you, unraveling the lies that became habits, peeling off the layers of self-protection that kept even joy at a distance. And I say this with holy intensity: never again will you cry and believe you're unseen. Never again will you ache and believe you're unloved. Never again will you suffer in silence, thinking no one notices, because I am in your room right now, not to correct your tears, but to wipe them, not to question your sorrow, but to hold it, not to rush you through healing, but to stay with you in every breath until you feel what you've always longed for: the safety of my presence, the security of my voice, and the truth that you are worthy of comfort, worthy of compassion, worthy of being seen, not because of what you've done, but because you are mine. When the minutes dragged into hours and your body lay still but your mind refused to quiet, I remained right there, unmoving, unwavering, watching over you with a gaze that never blinked. Because while you shifted under the weight of thoughts that circled endlessly, worries about tomorrow, regrets from yesterday, fears you couldn't even name, I stood watch like a guard at your door, not once turning away, not once abandoning my post. And as you tossed beneath the blanket hoping for peace, I whispered calm into your atmosphere, even when you didn't realize it was me. Even when the racing of your heart tried to drown out my presence, I stayed. And I need you to grasp something deeply serious now: there wasn't a single moment you were left unattended. Even in the darkness, even when sleep felt impossible and hope seemed far, I was there. Not because you earned it, not because you asked me to be, but because I chose to cover you when no one else could. And while your thoughts questioned everything you're worth, your future, your ability to keep going, my spirit answered them with unwavering assurance, countering every fear with faith, every lie with truth, every trembling breath with the steady rhythm of my eternal nearness. And those hours you felt forgotten, they were in fact the hours I leaned in the closest, because while the world went quiet and the noise subsided, I had the space to speak things into your heart that couldn't be heard during the day. And if your soul felt uneasy, if your chest felt heavy, it was not your weakness, it was your spirit becoming aware of my closeness, because sometimes my presence unsettles the things that have taken up too much space in your heart. And I allowed the sleeplessness not to punish you, but to prepare you, to awaken what has been buried beneath your busyness, and to bring you face to face with what needs my touch, because I refuse to let you carry toxic thoughts into another day. I refuse to let you step into your next season with spiritual fatigue that hasn't been dealt with. And so I waited, patiently, gently, not pressuring you to pray, not demanding that you speak, but simply standing in the room fully God, fully present, fully committed to seeing you through the night. And when the silence became suffocating, I exhaled peace into your lungs without you even realizing it. When the memories resurfaced like waves crashing through your mind, I stood as a barrier between you and the flood. And when you eventually drifted into sleep, I never left my post. I hovered, I watched, I interceded, and I began moving pieces in the unseen to ensure that by the time the sun rose, something in your spirit would begin to shift. Because I do not just reign in churches or dwell in high places, I step into bedrooms where hearts are aching. I walk through halls of loneliness where souls feel abandoned. I make my throne in the homes of the broken, And that's what I did with you. I made this space holy by my presence, even when you thought nothing was happening. And now I'm telling you this because I want you to stop underestimating my love. Stop believing that I only draw near when you're strong, when you're praising, when you're focused. No, I come when you're undone, when you're weak, when you've run out of strength, because I am not impressed by performance. I am drawn to honesty, and your stillness in the dark was the invitation I needed to begin rebuilding what had collapsed inside you. So don't you dare believe that last night was just another restless evening. It was a divine appointment where I showed up not in thunder or fire, but in quiet presence that surrounded you like air. And I need you to understand what happened, and the invisible will soon manifest in your days ahead, because I do not stand beside someone in the midnight hour without planning to launch them into morning victory. And though your eyelids grew tired, your spirit was being revived. And though you didn't hear my voice, your soul felt it. And that's why today you feel something different. You just haven't realized yet that what kept you awake wasn't anxiety. It was my spirit clearing space in your life for something new to begin. You may not have realized it, but that faint moment when your lips didn't move, when your heart cried out so quietly even you doubted it counted as prayer. That with the moment I leaned in closer than ever before. Because I'm not limited to what is spoken aloud, I respond to the ache that forms when words collapse under the pressure of pain. And your spirit called out with desperation, a kind of plea so raw it bypassed language entirely. And while your thoughts raced, trying to articulate your agony, I had already responded to what your soul was groaning in silence. And I want you to know this right now, seriously, because you've been questioning whether I truly heard you, whether I truly cared. And the answer is not just yes. I responded the moment your breath trembled with unspoken hope, because I recognize the sound of sorrow even when it's silent. I interpret the pauses in your thoughts. I feel the weight behind your blank stares, and what others overlook because they only listen for volume, I hear because I listen for heart. And that night, when you were curled up in bed, looking at the ceiling as if it might give you answers, I already dispatched my grace into the depths of your being, not waiting for a speech, not requiring an explanation, just responding with authority to the depth of your inner cry. And you may think nothing happened. You may feel like everything stayed the same. But what you didn't see is how I reached inside that invisible part of you and began untangling years of silent battles that you fought with no audience, because you don't need to scream for me to show up. You don't need perfect language for me to act. You only need to be honest. And your honesty was louder than any sermon, more powerful than any shouted declaration. And I honored it by surrounding you immediately with a shield you couldn't see, by standing in front of threats you didn't even know were headed your way. And this is what I need you to understand with great seriousness. I am the only one who has access to your silent places, the only one who can navigate the territory within you that's been off limits even to yourself. And that is where I am working now, not in the shallow parts where others visit, but in the deepest chambers where the wounds have gone untreated. And as you asked quietly, trembling inside, please, just do something, I didn't hesitate. I went into action before your thoughts could doubt it. And even now, as you hear these words, you are being reminded of that fragile moment, not to relive the pain, but to realize how deeply loved you are, that even when you were unsure I was listening, I was already moving, already pouring out provision you wouldn't recognize until later, already marking that moment in eternity as the turning point where your request became my assignment. And I'm telling you this now because I don't want you to assume I only move through big moments, loud voices, or public declarations. I do some of my greatest work in the hidden whispers of hurting hearts, and your quiet plea carried more weight in heaven than you know. It reached my throne not because it was bold, but because it was real, and I honored that reality by releasing a shift you can't yet measure, because your whisper triggered something in the supernatural, something irreversible, something unstoppable. And though the enemy hoped you'd give up before seeing the result, I am here to interrupt that lie and show you that your weakest moment became the doorway to divine help. And I want you to remember that from now on, not to underestimate the power of your quiet surrender, not to forget that I don't need volume to validate your pain. I need surrender, and your surrender that night, even without words, was enough to move my heart, to release my hand, and to begin the transformation that will not stop until everything broken in you becomes the birthplace of something holy. This space you're in, the walls, the furniture, the floor beneath your feet, has absorbed moments you thought no one witnessed, but I was present through them all, and now I stand surrounded by the very evidence of your suffering, not as a passive observer but as the one who has come to remove what has lingered for far too long, because these surroundings hold more than memories, they carry the weight of battles you fought alone, of questions that echoed with no response, of restless nights that ended in emotional exhaustion. And I can feel it pressing from every angle, this heaviness that settled like dust and made itself a quiet companion to your daily existence. And that's why I'm not speaking from a distance or waiting for you to seek me out. I came to you, stepped into this atmosphere to declare something final. You will no longer lie buried beneath invisible burdens, because I am not only here to comfort, I'm here to cleanse, to redeem every trace of sorrow that has marked this room as a place of heartbreak. And you may have cried here, hidden here, broken down here, but I'm reclaiming it as a sanctuary where restoration begins. And I know you've tried to push through, to pretend those moments were behind you, but spiritual residue doesn't vanish with time, it requires my intervention. And that's why my presence feels so intense right now, because I'm going after what was left behind, the trauma still tucked into corners, the emotional weight folded into blankets, the disappointment lingering in the very air you breathe. And I want you to stop brushing it aside, stop minimizing what you've endured here, because everything matters to me. Every tear that hit this floor, every time you stared at the ceiling begging for something to change, every time you turned your face to the wall because facing life was too much, that all counts. And I'm not ignoring it. I'm addressing it now with the authority only I carry. And I need you to allow me to do what no one else could, to walk through this room with spiritual fire and peace intertwined, burning away what should never have stayed and filling that space with the fragrance of healing, because this place will no longer be associated with breakdowns or defeat. It will become the place where your breakthrough was born, where your turnaround was ignited, and you'll look back not with shame, but with reverence, knowing that the same room that once held your lowest moments became holy ground when I arrived to lift everything you were never created to carry. And I'm not leaving a trace behind of what tormented you, no echo of past failures, no shadows of betrayal, no remnants of fear, because when I cleanse a space, I do it completely. And when I move into an environment, nothing demonic or damaging can stay. And that's what is happening now, not metaphorically, not someday, but in this exact moment as I speak. Your room is being transformed from a chamber of silence into a throne room of divine exchange, where your ache is traded for assurance, your anxiety for clarity, your despair for divine strength. And I want you to notice what's happening. Notice the stillness that wasn't there before, the atmosphere that feels different, lighter, almost sacred, because that's not emotion, that's transformation. And it's being written into your very surroundings like a decree in the spirit realm that nothing unclean, nothing tormenting, nothing accusatory may remain here, because this space now belongs to the one who holds all authority. And that is me, your savior, your defender, your deliverer. And you will sleep differently here now. You will think differently. You will wake up with a different kind of strength, not because your circumstances changed overnight, but because my presence rewrote the spiritual climate of your most personal space. And from this day forward, you will know, this room is not just a structure, it is the place where heaven touched earth, where I visited you when no one else did, where I poured out the kind of healing that penetrates past the surface. And you will carry that shift with you, even when you leave, because what I placed here tonight cannot be undone. Even when silence was loudest and shadows felt closest, I remained by your side, never shifting, never losing sight of you for a single breath. And I know the thoughts that circled your mind, those moments you sat in stillness wondering if anyone noticed your internal unraveling, those hours you questioned if I cared at all, if I truly saw you, or if you had somehow become invisible even to me. But let me say this with all the seriousness my love carries. Not one second has passed where my gaze has left you. Not one hardship occurred outside of my awareness, and I didn't just know you were hurting, I stayed near enough to feel it with you. And while others left when your vulnerability became inconvenient, I leaned closer, not recoiling from the mess, not discouraged by the silence, but drawing even nearer, because I don't abandon in discomfort. I anchor myself in your space so tightly that not even your doubts could loosen my grip. And I need you to truly comprehend this now, because the lie of isolation has tried to root itself so deeply inside you that you began building your identity around loneliness. But I have come to break that deception, to cut the cords that tethered you to the idea that you are unseen, to confront every lingering belief that my presence was conditional. Because what I've provided is unwavering proximity, not based on performance, not held back by your inconsistencies, but established before you were even born, secured by my unbreakable promise to never forsake you. And even in your darkest decisions, when your choices created distance between you and peace, I stood there not approving of the pain, but refusing to let it have the final word. And you didn't realize it, but I blocked things you'll never know about. I prevented breakdowns that were forming in the background. I intercepted storms that were scheduled to destroy, and I did it without applause, without announcement, because that's who I am, the God who guards in silence, who remains faithful in your wilderness, who doesn't walk out when you're unsure of your own worth. And you need to stop measuring my loyalty by the way people handled your vulnerability, because my love is not fragile. It doesn't get tired of your need. It doesn't fade when you're struggling to believe, and I am not one to disappear when it gets too hard. I remain, I cover, I protect, and I whisper when the noise inside your mind is too loud to hear anything else, and even when you assumed you were ignored, that nothing around you would ever shift. I was planting roots of strength beneath your feet, roots that didn't require your awareness to grow, because I was always invested in you deeply. Eternally, and the moments you felt completely abandoned were the exact moments I wrapped you tighter in my presence, not to control you, but to remind your soul, even in unseen ways, that you were never truly on your own. And right now, as you take in these words, something within you is stirring, something that's recognizing that those invisible waves of comfort you experienced when you were at your lowest were not coincidences, not imagination. They were me. They were my spirit leaning in, holding you together when you thought you'd fall apart. And today I speak it plainly. My nearness is not earned. It is chosen, and I chose to stay, even when you felt far, even when your prayers grew quiet, even when disappointment made you stop expecting good things. Still I stayed, because my love doesn't pack its bags when your faith trembles. It doesn't retreat when your confidence fades. It holds steady. It surrounds. It carries. And this is why I'm here again now, making sure you finally know what I've known all along, that you have never walked a single step without me beside you. And you never will, because I am bound to you not by obligation, but by the overwhelming desire to see you whole, free, and fully aware that I'm not going anywhere, no matter what happens next. When your voice grew tired and your prayers faded into unspoken hopes, I didn't need to hear sound to know your need. I dwelled within the very stillness you thought was empty. The quiet moments that felt forgotten by heaven were in fact saturated with my presence, so close that even your smallest exhale stirred my attention. And while the world looks for noise, I respond to what cannot be measured by volume. The hidden groans of a weary soul, the inward tension that comes from fighting battles others can't see, the trembling that hides behind composed faces. And I want you to grasp the gravity of what I'm telling you. Those moments when you sat still, paralyzed by emotions you couldn't articulate, were not moments of spiritual failure. They were moments of divine visitation, because I positioned myself inside that hush. I wrapped myself around the very places where words refused to form, and even when all you could release was a breath laced with fear, I received it as a sacred invitation to stay close, to uphold what was collapsing, to steady what was spinning. And I saw it all: the way your chest tightened with anxiety, how your hands sometimes trembled when no one was looking, how you covered your mouth to hide panic or pressed your fists into blankets to keep from breaking open. And through every second of that silent suffering, I remained locked in, present, fully engaged, not waiting for you to speak, but interpreting every movement of your heart as a call for my comfort. And I'm telling you now because you need to unlearn the idea that my power only responds to perfect prayers or polished praise. Because I am not drawn to performance, I am drawn to pain surrendered, even when that surrender looks like nothing but a sigh held back by trembling lips. And the fear you've been carrying in your pulse, that nervous rhythm that shows up when you anticipate more disappointment, I've been addressing it quietly, healing it slowly, wrapping my peace around it layer by layer until you begin to feel safe again. And though you may not have realized it, each beat of your heart that came with dread was being met by the rhythm of my compassion, which never skipped, never stumbled, and never failed to respond with gentleness. And while others didn't see the war inside you, I saw every skirmish, every internal collapse, every surge of panic that made your breath hitch. And I didn't flinch. I stayed steady. I remained near, not just beside you but within the very fiber of your being, actively working against the darkness, trying to grow roots inside you. And this is what I need you to understand now. You are not weak for having those moments. You are not less spiritual because you had days when courage disappeared, because it's in those very moments, the wordless ones, the trembling ones, the still ones, that I show you what my love really looks like, not flashy, not distant, not delayed, but present, powerful, and profoundly personal. And I know you've been told to keep going, to push through, to not let emotions control you. But I am telling you that I was never bothered by your emotion, never burdened by your honesty, never irritated by your pause, because I knew that pause was sacred. It was the doorway through which I would enter, not to shame you for your silence, but to prove that even without words, I am fully aware, fully invested, and fully committed to bringing you out of what has tried to bury you. And now, as I speak this over you, I am releasing a deeper awareness of my nearness, one that doesn't rely on noise or sensation, but one rooted in the reality that I have always been intertwined with every breath, every beat, every quiet surrender. And from this point on, you will not mistake silence for absence, nor will you fear the stillness, because I have made it a sanctuary where your soul can rest, not because you found the strength, but because I brought the shelter. You scrolled through names, stared at messages that never came, hovered over contacts thinking maybe, just maybe, someone might sense your pain without you having to explain it. And every time you locked the screen again with that familiar ache in your chest, I was there, not disappointed in your search for comfort, but yearning for you to see that the connection you were craving was never meant to be filled by human attention alone, because I am the one who never misses your quiet reaching, the one who sees through your hesitations, who recognizes that behind every casual check of your phone was a silent plea. Does anyone see me? Would anyone notice if I disappeared? And while your fingers moved across glass, hoping to feel close to someone, I stood inches from your soul, arms wide, heart open, waiting for that one moment where you'd finally sense that no screen could replace the depth of belonging I offer. And I know how much you've craved understanding. I know how deeply you've longed for one message, one call, one word that would say, "You matter." And though many failed to show up, I never left my post. And I say this now not to shame you, but to awaken you to the truth that my presence isn't fragile or inconsistent like theirs. It is unwavering, undistracted, unbreakable. And while they didn't answer, I was already responding with stillness, with a whisper in your spirit you mistook for your own thoughts. And I watched as you put the device down, disappointed, turning over to bury your face in the dark. And even then, I leaned in with compassion that doesn't require sound, doesn't demand effort, because what you were really searching for wasn't a person, it was comfort, security, reassurance that you're not invisible, and I am all of those things and more, not because I have to be, but because I chose to be the one who never disconnects, never puts you on hold, never replies with silence. And I've been here before the notifications, before the loneliness, before the questions, and I'm still here now, asking for your attention, not through alarms or alerts, but through the quiet pull in your chest that says, "Look up, I'm right here." And I understand how you've learned to associate validation with response, to equate love with being noticed. But I'm inviting you into something higher, into the revelation that you are eternally known, even when no one responds, even when the world is silent, even when the message remains unread. And what I want to do now is redefine intimacy for you, not as something measured by digital affirmation or constant communication, but as the divine certainty that even when your name isn't on anyone's mind, it is inscribed upon my heart. And there is no delay in me, no dropped signal, no forgotten reply, because my attention has never wavered from you, not once. And as I watched you turn your hope toward devices, I never grew distant. I simply waited for you to see that I've been reaching out too, not with buzzes or rings, but with warmth in your spirit, with peace that quietly settled your anxiety, with ideas that comforted you in ways you couldn't trace. And I want you to realize that nothing you seek for belonging will ever satisfy until you begin to engage with the one who made you for connection deeper than conversation. And that's me, your savior, who doesn't get tired of you, who doesn't grow cold with silence, who doesn't look away when you retreat, but who stays even when your eyes are fixed elsewhere, even when your heart leans toward temporary comforts, even when you're unsure what you truly want, and I remain not out of duty, but because I love you more than you've ever been loved before, and I'll never stop trying to show you that the closeness you long for already exists. It's me, and I've been with you every time you searched, not offended, just waiting for you to discover that the one who made your soul understands it better than anyone you could ever call or text, and I'll never stop speaking until you recognize that your search ends here. You've grown so accustomed to the pressure on your chest that you started believing it's normal, like a weight you're destined to drag through every hour of the day and into each restless night. But I'm telling you now with the full authority of heaven behind every word that what has wrapped itself around your shoulders was never meant to stay. And though you've adjusted your posture to accommodate this invisible burden, though you've learned to smile through the strain and function through fatigue, I've come into your atmosphere not to observe the tension, but to remove it completely, because what you've called life was never my design for you, and what you've accepted as your portion was really oppression masked as responsibility, emotional overload disguised as maturity, and internal battles you fought in silence thinking you had no choice. And I want you to hear this clearly. Just because you've learned to endure it doesn't mean I want you to keep carrying it, because my presence does not coexist with unnecessary torment. It confronts it, breaks it, casts it out, and that's what is happening right now, even if you don't fully understand it yet. Even if all you feel is a sudden lightness in your spirit or a quiet moment of release you can't explain, that is me intervening, dismantling spiritual pressure that has worn you down slowly over time, layer by layer. And I need you to stop clinging to it like it's part of your identity, because what began as survival has now become a stronghold, and I'm tearing it down not to expose your weakness, but to reveal the strength I've been trying to give you, a strength that doesn't come from holding everything together, but from finally surrendering it into my hands. And I see how it's made you tense, how even your breathing has changed under the weight of internal pressure, how your sleep has been interrupted by thoughts that don't rest. And I want you to know none of that has gone unnoticed. And I didn't come just to pat you on the back and tell you you're doing great under pressure. I came to lift it, to carry it myself, to show you that you were never supposed to walk around with your heart clenched, your spirit exhausted, and your mind spinning with what-ifs. And I know you've gotten used to it. I know it feels strange to even imagine being free of this constant emotional load. But you have to trust me now. Trust the hands that were pierced for you. Trust the voice that spoke galaxies into existence, but is still whispering to your weary soul, telling you that it's safe to let go, that it's okay to release what you've gripped so tightly out of fear. And I'm not asking you to solve it, to fix it, to explain it. I'm asking you to release it, to allow me to lift what's been weighing you down while you were trying to smile through it. And I promise you this: I won't just take the burden, I'll fill the space it occupied with peace so rich, so steady, that even your nervous system will begin to reset, even your thoughts will begin to quiet, even your body will begin to rest. Because when I lift something, I don't leave you empty. I restore, I realign, I renew. And yes, it might feel unfamiliar at first, to walk lighter, to think clearer, to no longer wake up with dread before your feet hit the floor. But don't resist the unfamiliarity. This is freedom, and it's yours, not as a reward but as a gift. And all I ask is that you stop managing what I've come to remove. Stop adjusting your life to accommodate pressure that I'm removing even now. Stop building your routine around pain I've already decided to destroy, because this is not temporary relief, this is permanent rescue. And from this moment forward, the heaviness that haunted your days and invaded your nights is being unraveled by my hands, replaced with a divine lightness that doesn't fade with circumstance. And I want you to walk forward knowing this: what you feel loosening now is not just emotion. It is evidence that I am doing what you've longed for but didn't know how to ask for. Because I'm not responding to eloquent prayers, I'm responding to the fact that I love you too much to let you carry this another step. You've questioned your worth so many times that it started to echo louder than truth. And though you've been surrounded by voices, expectations, and noise, there's been a quiet ache underneath it all, a wondering, a deep-rooted uncertainty that keeps whispering, am I truly valuable, or just tolerated? And I came into this exact space, in this exact hour, to silence that lie at its root, because your existence is not a mistake. Your presence on this earth is not filler, and every breath you take matters in ways far beyond what you've been told. And I need you to sit with the weight of that for a moment, not the crushing kind of weight, but the holy kind, the kind that wakes up the places inside of you that have gone numb from constant comparison, rejection, and striving, and I need you to see that this visitation is not random, not vague, not general. I came for you, specifically you, because I've seen how often you shrink yourself down to fit the approval of others, how you've dimmed your own soul just to avoid being misunderstood, how you've walked into rooms wondering if anyone actually notices you. And I want to break that cycle right now by revealing the truth you've been aching to hear. You are deeply seen, intricately known, and profoundly cherished, not for what you do, not for how well you perform, not for how strong you pretend to be, but simply because you are mine. And when I formed you, I didn't make a duplicate. I didn't assemble spare parts. I breathed original purpose into your being. I placed divine fingerprints across every part of your identity. And you need to understand this with all seriousness. You matter not just generally, but eternally. And no failure, no detour, no disappointment can reduce the value I placed on you before time began. And my presence in this room right now isn't here to applaud what others see, it's to restore what has been overlooked in the unseen, because I know what you've kept hidden. I know how often you've wondered if the way you feel disqualifies you from destiny. But I'm telling you it doesn't, not even close, because I don't choose based on perfection, I choose based on surrender, and your heart has been more surrendered than you realize, even when your faith felt fragile, even when your confidence wavered. I saw your willingness to keep showing up, to keep trying, to keep hoping against the grain of disappointment. And I want you to know, without question, that this moment, right now, is sacred not because of what you've done but because of who you are to me. And who you are is someone I would stop the heavens for, someone I would interrupt the noise of the world to speak to, someone I would enter a quiet room just to remind. You have not been forgotten, and I'm doing that now because the world has done a poor job of telling you the truth. And I refuse to let you live one more day unaware of the magnitude of your value, not in human currency, but in heaven's measure, which cannot be diminished, stolen, or destroyed. And I'm not offering flattery or temporary comfort. I'm giving you a reality that will outlast seasons, emotions, and circumstances. And that reality is this: you have my attention, you have my affection, and you have my full backing. And I need you to stop filtering your identity through broken mirrors, through warped feedback, through cold silence from others who never saw the depth of what I placed in you, because their inability to recognize your light has nothing to do with its brightness. And I'm here to reignite what discouragement tried to put out, to remind you that you are not replaceable, not random, not irrelevant. You are divinely positioned, strategically designed, and presently being drawn into alignment with the purpose that has waited patiently for this moment of awakening. And now that you know I'm here, don't question why I'm here, because you are worth my presence, worth my voice, worth my time, and I will stay here until you see yourself through my eyes. I didn't burst through the door or demand attention with force, because my nature is not chaos, it's calm that seeps in so quietly it often goes unnoticed until you realize the pressure is no longer pressing. The tightness in your chest has begun to ease. The mental storm that never seemed to stop has grown still without a fight. And that right there is me, not shouting for acknowledgement, but settling around you like warmth you didn't realize you needed. And I'm not here to overwhelm you. I'm here to stabilize what's been trembling beneath the surface, because you've been navigating life in survival mode for so long that stillness feels unfamiliar, almost foreign. But I'm asking you now, let it in. Lean into this silence not as emptiness but as a gift, because this is not absence. This is presence, holy presence, mine, resting over every worn-out part of you that's been straying far beyond its limit. And I chose to show up not with spectacle or dramatic display, but with something deeper, an atmosphere that shifts the internal climate without explanation. And I know your mind has been racing, always planning, always managing possibilities, fearing outcomes, scanning for what could go wrong. But right now, I'm interrupting that current with something stronger than logic, something you can't calculate or measure, the supernatural stillness of my nearness. And it doesn't need your understanding to work. It just needs your permission to stay, because what you're feeling wrap around your being in this exact moment is not imagination, it is a heavenly quiet that carries power, not weakness. And I placed it here, like a soft covering over your tension, so your soul could finally unclench, so your spirit could finally exhale, And if you pause for just a moment longer, you'll notice the weight has shifted, not because your life suddenly changed, but because my spirit entered your environment with authority that doesn't scream but speaks with assurance. And I want you to know this. When I enter a place, I bring with me everything you've been trying to produce on your own, peace that doesn't depend on perfection. Peace that doesn't evaporate when the phone rings or when memories try to haunt. Peace that lives, breathes, and surrounds like a fortress even when storms rage outside. And that's what's happening now, even if no one else understands it. Even if this moment seems too simple to matter, because simplicity is where I often do my greatest work. And what you're receiving is not a mood, it's a shift. A divine correction to a pace that was breaking you down. A reminder that you were never created to move through life braced for impact at all times. And so I am placing stillness on your shoulders like a mantle, not to make you passive, but to make you strong in a different way, a kind of strength that flows from steadiness, not striving, from assurance, not fear. And I know this kind of strength may feel unfamiliar at first, because you've been taught to equate peace with boredom or idleness. But this is not absence of action, it is presence of power, controlled, unwavering, eternal. And as it settles deeper into your being, don't rush it, don't analyze it. Just let it anchor you where instability has lived too long, because I'm not offering you a momentary relief. I'm giving you a new rhythm, one where your shoulders no longer bear what I've already taken, one where your heart is no longer under siege by invisible pressures. And in this stillness, I will begin to rebuild what frantic energy tried to destroy. I will restore balance where imbalance ruled. I will breathe clarity where confusion clouded, and all of it begins with this moment, this unexplainable calm, this silence that doesn't scare you anymore, because now you know it's not emptiness, it's me. And I didn't come to leave quickly, I came to stay. What you've been calling normal has actually been unhealed weight, an invisible hand pressing down over your heart, squeezing with every unanswered question, every moment of silent dread, every layer of responsibility that became heavier than you could express. And though you've grown accustomed to walking through your days with that tightness like an unspoken companion, I want you to know that even now, I am moving through the very center of your being, gently melting what anxiety has built, what fear has reinforced, and what stress has stored. Because I did not create your chest to hold torment, I designed it to hold breath, freedom, rhythm, and steady peace. And what I'm doing now is not just easing your symptoms, I'm targeting the root, not with judgment, but with divine affection that doesn't force its way in, but surrounds every constricted place and begins to soften what was hardened by years of carrying burdens you never told anyone about. And I see how long you functioned with that pressure as part of your daily rhythm, how you've started bracing for impact before anything even goes wrong, how you've taught yourself to anticipate disappointment, how your body reacts even before your mind understands why. But let me say this with holy seriousness. I never intended for my beloved to live this way, and I refuse to watch you suffer internally while pretending externally that everything is fine. So I've stepped in with the one thing strong enough to completely reverse what has embedded itself in your inner life, my love, and not the kind you've seen modeled inconsistently around you, not the kind that disappears when you fail to meet expectations, not the kind that leaves you questioning if you're still enough, but a purifying, healing, soul-deep love that knows no boundaries, no conditions, no expiration, and I'm applying it now like a balm to the hidden bruises that stress has left behind. And as I saturate your spirit with it, you'll notice something subtle but undeniable. The tightness loosens, the shallowness of your breath deepens, the chaos inside your mind grows quiet. And no, this isn't temporary comfort, this is deliverance, not loud or dramatic, but deeply transformative. And I don't need an audience to perform miracles. I do some of my most powerful work in rooms like this, where it's just me and you, heart to heart, breath to breathe, presence surrounding presence. And what I'm removing right now isn't just tension, it's torment disguised as responsibility. It's perfectionism hiding as pressure. It's fear pretending to be preparation. And as it lifts, you may feel lighter in a way that almost scares you because you're not used to being without it. But I promise you this, you won't miss it when it's gone. And I will never leave a void where oppression once lived. I will fill it with clarity. I will replace it with joy that does not demand circumstances to remain perfect. And I will teach your heart how to beat without fear being its rhythm, because love is not just an emotion, it is a force. and mine is invading every space where anxiety has tried to root itself in your chest, and where tightness once reigned. Expansion will begin, space to hope again, space to breathe again, space to move through your life without constantly scanning for what could fall apart. And that shift you feel right now, it's not imagination, it's the weight of my glory pushing back every dark imprint that tried to settle where peace was supposed to reside. And I will continue until the very pulse within you reflects the pace of heaven, not the pressure of earth. And you will begin to notice without effort that you're no longer waking up with that invisible dread, that you're not reacting the same to the chaos around you, that somehow, some way, your inner world has grown quieter, stronger, steadier, and it's because my love is not just visiting you, it's reforming you from the inside out. And you don't have to strive to hold on to this, because I am holding on to you, and I'm not letting go. You've been battling a voice that doesn't belong to you, thoughts that creep in when no one is around, convincing you that you're too broken, too behind, too much to deal with. And over time, those internal accusations started to feel like facts. But I am standing here now not only to expose those voices for what they truly are, distortions, planted to keep you stuck, but to drive them out with a higher authority, because you were never meant to live at war within yourself, constantly second-guessing your value, doubting your next step, and fearing that who you are will never be enough. And I want you to understand with full seriousness that those ideas didn't come from me. I would never speak to you the way you've been speaking to yourself in your most vulnerable moments. And while the world tries to normalize internal torment, I came to make it clear. You don't have to live in agreement with lies that were designed to dismantle your identity. And right now, I am confronting the cycle not with blame, but with light, shining directly on the strongholds that have claimed territory in your thinking for too long. And I'm not asking for you to fight them on your own. I came into this room carrying truth strong enough to demolish every deceptive structure that's been built brick by brick through disappointment, trauma, shame, and unmet expectations. And what I'm doing in this moment is divine exchange, removing what was never yours to begin with and replacing it with what has always been your inheritance. Clarity, assurance, divine understanding of who you really are, not based on performance or history, but rooted in my unchanging love and eternal design for you. And you need to know that I see the conflict within you, the way you try to encourage others while secretly drowning in self-doubt, the way you smile outwardly while battling thoughts that whisper you're failing privately. But I didn't come here to condemn you for that inner tension. I came to heal it at its source, because I don't just want you free on the outside, I want you free in the deep places, in the mental corners where old wounds have whispered unworthiness into your soul. And I want you to stop accepting those narratives as normal, because they've never been the truth. They've never come from me. And I'm not only speaking better words over you, I'm rewriting the very framework of how you process, how you interpret the world, how you interpret yourself. And even now, as my presence rests in this space, there's a shift happening, not because you're trying harder, but because I'm replacing things, thought by thought, lie by lie, fear by fear, until the inner atmosphere changes and peace becomes your new normal, until you look in the mirror and no longer see a collection of flaws, but a reflection of someone deeply loved, deeply chosen, deeply purposed. And I'm not waiting until you reach some imaginary version of perfection to do this work. No, I'm already in motion, already clearing out the clutter, already silencing the internal critic that has spoken far too loudly for far too long. And if you listen closely, you'll start to hear a new sound, one that doesn't accuse but affirms, one that doesn't confuse but clarifies, one that doesn't echo failure but speaks promise. And that sound is me, reintroducing you to who I created you to be before the world tried to redefine you, before experiences tried to reshape your self-image. And every second you spend with me, that false image loses power. Those toxic thoughts begin to dissolve, because my truth isn't just words, it's transformation. And it's happening right now, without a sermon, without an audience, without a dramatic moment, just me and you, here in this room, exchanging broken thoughts for eternal truth. And the more you let me speak, the more you'll realize. The voice inside your head was never supposed to sound like fear, it was always meant to sound like me. You've carried yourself through fires that scorched your soul without ever letting anyone see the burns you've endured, heartbreak, confusion, pressure, and fear with a quiet strength that no one celebrated, because you didn't make noise. You didn't fall apart where they could see. You just kept showing up, kept moving forward, even when everything inside you was begging for rest. And now I'm here not to applaud your performance, but to offer you something better than survival. True safety, real release, honest rest, because you were never meant to be the one holding everything together alone. And I know you've learned to wear the armor well, to smile when your heart was screaming, to carry others when you could barely carry yourself, to take care of situations you never signed up for, to suppress your breakdowns because there wasn't time or space to fall apart. But I saw it all, and I'm telling you now, with a tenderness the world never offered, that it's safe to stop holding your breath. It's safe to stop pretending. It's safe to finally let me be the strength you've been faking, because what you've called courage has often just been a necessity wrapped in silence. And while others praised your resilience, I recognized your exhaustion, and I never demanded another performance. I simply waited for the moment you'd look up, not in defeat, but in surrender. And that moment is now, right here, with me, because I didn't come to push you further. I came to carry you into peace, into rest, into healing that doesn't require you to be anything but exactly how you are in this moment, weary and wondering how much longer you can keep pretending you're okay. And I need you to hear me. I'm not impressed by your ability to endure pain without flinching. I'm moved by your vulnerability, by the courage it takes to finally let go, to finally say, I can't do this anymore. And you don't have to, because I'm here. And I'm not asking you to prove anything, not asking for effort or explanation, just your willingness to collapse into my arms without fear of rejection, without shame, without apology. And I know you've been the strong one for so long that weakness feels like failure. But it's not. It's a doorway, an opening where my power begins to flow freely, where my help can finally reach the parts of you that you've blocked off for the sake of everyone else. And you may have been the dependable one, the fixer, the calm in other people's chaos, but who has been that for you? I have. Even when you didn't know it, even when you felt like no one noticed. I did, and I stayed close, not waiting for you to fall apart, but ready to catch what you've been holding far too tightly. And now, as my presence surrounds you in this still moment, I'm giving you permission to put the mask down, to stop pretending you're invincible, to stop acting like the pain didn't affect you, like the disappointments didn't break something inside. Because I'm not asking you to be heroic, I'm asking you to be honest. And in your honesty, I will meet you with compassion that knows no limits, with power that doesn't demand perfection, and I will show you that my strength begins where your pretending ends, and you'll begin to see that what you thought was weakness, letting go, is actually the path to freedom. And the more you surrender, the more you'll feel the crushing weight lift. The more you'll discover that grace is not a theory, it's a real force, and it has already started moving through you as you let these words in, not because you earned it, but because I love you too much to let you collapse under the pressure of being the strong one forever. And today, I release you from the performance. I free you from the illusion that you have to keep holding everyone else together while falling apart in silence, because I'm not just in your room, I'm in your reality, and I'm here to be what no one else could be for you, your refuge, your rescue, and your rest. Right now, in this very moment, there is a covering around you that is not made of human words or worldly reassurance. It is divine radiance, my light, wrapping around every inch of your soul with intention, authority, and permanence. And this light is not weak or symbolic, it is real, weighty, and alive, pushing back everything that has tried to haunt your atmosphere, everything that has hovered over you like a storm cloud waiting to unleash despair. And while others may have only seen the surface, I've seen the battles that happened in silence, the inner war zones marked by years of fear, guilt, confusion, and shame. And that's why I've brought light that doesn't just illuminate, it overtakes, it eradicates, it reclaims ground stolen by darkness that crept in when you were vulnerable, when your guard was down, when lies felt louder than truth. And I'm not talking about a glow that flickers in and out depending on how strong your faith feels. I'm speaking of a light that originates from my being, a light that has never been dimmed, not by hell, not by failure, not by history, and certainly not by anything you've endured. And as I release this light into your environment, into your thought patterns, into your emotional memory, you will begin to sense something foreign at first: peace that doesn't retreat, safety that doesn't evaporate, clarity that doesn't vanish with the next wave of uncertainty. And that's because this is not human comfort. This is divine atmosphere shifting everything around and within you. And I know it's been difficult to believe that something good could surround you when you spent so long under the weight of dread. But that's why I came myself, to change what's been accepted as normal, to flood your space with a purity so complete that even the residue of torment has to go. And this light, my light, isn't hindered by past trauma. It isn't intimidated by mental pressure. It doesn't need conditions to operate, it simply exists. And it exists in power. And I am placing it over your mind like a canopy, round your body like a shield, inside your atmosphere like a fire that cannot be quenched. And I want you to begin to recognize the difference now, not just in how you feel, but in what begins to leave, what begins to break, what begins to shift, because light and darkness cannot coexist. And what's been tormenting you in secret is already being evicted, already being dismantled, already losing its grip, not by your striving, but by my presence. And I don't need you to fight harder, I need you to believe that I'm doing what no one else could do for you. Removing the spiritual fog, breaking off the emotional tension, lifting the hidden weight of oppression, and replacing it with something permanent. Not just light that shines around you, but light that settles within you, radiating from the inside out, changing how you speak, how you see, how you carry yourself, because you'll begin to notice that where confusion once sat, confidence now arises. Where panic had its grip, peace now takes its seat. And it's not because circumstances have changed, it's because your internal reality has been overtaken by something much greater than the battles you've known. And I'm not stopping here. I'm going deeper, past the surface pain, past the shallow fear, straight into the core of your identity, and flooding every room of your heart with revelation. You are not surrounded by shadows anymore. You are wrapped in the brilliance of the one who called you, who chose you, who never stopped chasing you. And this light I've brought isn't temporary. It isn't seasonal. It isn't emotional, it's eternal. And it will not fade, because I don't place light where I'm not willing to remain. And I'm not leaving, not now, not ever. So let it sink in. The darkness is over, and a new day has begun inside of you. You didn't realize it, but when everything started falling apart, when your strength began to fail, when your heart cracked under the pressure no one could see, that was the very moment the atmosphere around you became sacred. Not because you had it all together, not because you were performing faith perfectly, but because in your vulnerability, I found the door wide open, not for judgment, but for divine interaction. Because while people are drawn to success and composure, I'm drawn to honesty and surrender. And your ache, though you tried to hide it, though you tried to manage it silently, became the invitation I had been waiting for, the unspoken cry that pierced through every layer of your guarded heart and gave me full access to what you've been holding back. And I know you've been taught to see brokenness as a weakness, to mask discomfort with activity, to clean yourself up before approaching anything spiritual. But I need you to hear me. The trembling place inside you is not repelling me, it's attracting me, because I don't show up where ego reigns. I show up where there's emptiness that only I can fill. And that's what this is right now, not just another night, not just another hard day you're trying to push through, but a sacred appointment where heaven touches earth quietly in the middle of your personal storm. And I didn't bring noise. I didn't bring drama, I brought presence, the kind that settles like a deep breath after hours of holding it in, the kind that turns pain into a portal for glory. And right now, I want you to realize that your wounds are not shameful, they are proof that you've endured. They are places I am now inhabiting with power. And I'm not asking you to minimize what you felt. I'm not asking you to pretend it wasn't hard. I'm telling you I came precisely because it was, because your tears watered the soil of encounter, because your emptiness made space for me to arrive without being crowded out. And there's something happening now, right in the core of your being, as I mark this moment, not with rituals, not with formality, but with intimacy, because this is what I've always longed for, not religious performance, but relationship in its rawest, realest form. And I want you to sit with it for a moment, the truth that you, as you are now, in the middle of the struggle,